Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. Today I want to give you an update of the castle, a work in progress on this large project here, and give you a chance to see it in its entirety, and also give you a chance then to see it as it stands now, with some ideas about where it's going to go in the future, and some questions I have about some placements, some of the work that I've done, and where it maybe would be best suited. This is going to be the focus for the next couple weeks. I'm going to try and wrap this up, so hopefully there'll be lots of updates to come, but you can at least see where I'm at this point. So let's take a closer look at it and talk about where it is and where it's going. And I'll give a close-up of some of these pieces in a second, but first just to take a look at it in its entirety. To this point, what I've done is I've finished the interior wall and the dressings, and I put in some, sort of, I don't know what you really call them, flying towers or something like that on the corners here. I've completed the external tower and the walkway that connects it, and I have put up the foam pieces, really, you can see it all in its entirety here, to represent the back wall, the rocky wall that this will be set into. Now, one of the things, the last, sort of major construction piece that I need to do, and I'm going to start work on that today after this video, is the last final tower that will sit in the back here. So this is probably a good point just to mention what I plan to do with that. What I'd like to do, now that tower is designed to be taller than this one, so that when you view it, from more of a tabletop level, right, we'll have all these various heights in the piece, and so I want that tower to come up a little bit higher in the back here. But I don't want to extend its diameter larger than this, as really that's about as big as I think it's going to look, appropriate for a tower at this scale. So what I'd like to do is actually shrink the diameter down of the column a little bit, and then have it come up to a larger piece at the top that then has fluted columns coming down, sort of, well, not even like these really, more of an arched look like this in the back here, and these will taper. These will taper into the column that supports the upper large section. So that's my idea really for this section at this moment here. And that will, sort of, I don't know, I have to consider that with the rock wall here, and I think I need to add some more foam to this rock wall to accommodate that, as the facing of the rock wall, I think, is too close to the castle back to accommodate the upper section. I'd like that to be free. So that's something that will need to be done in the future here. Taking a look at this tower and the walkway before I get up close to it, when I originally developed the tower, I felt like it was too cylindrical. And originally I actually had planned to have this bottom connected to this top and hang down lower and give it a really heavy top end. But at the end I realized this needed some kind of footing, so I added it to the bottom. Now originally I had planned on having these buttresses against this, these flying buttresses, and I'd like to set that up for you here so you can see that. But I had a friend who commented, actually a couple people, more than one, who thought that they didn't look good against this and that they might do better against the towers on the sides of the castle. I hadn't planned on that originally, but, that gives an interesting alternative. So, there's a little look at a distance of these against the castle, and let me put them up against the tower and you can see that. So here you can see the alternate layout. This was what I originally intended. I wanted some buttresses, these flying buttresses, to go against the tower to give it, the image of some support. And, my wife and a few other people commented they didn't think that looked appropriate, and they liked them better against the towers over here. So that's one of the alternate options. Of course, they could be omitted from any of these pieces, so that's something to think about. But I wanted to present those options to you so that you could see some of those alternates and maybe give me some feedback on that. So let's break from the tripod and take a closer look at all these pieces, and I'll try to be as smooth as I can with the camera. So this is sort of an interior look, and what I'd like to do is, well, before I talk about what I'd like to do, let's talk about what I did here. Let's take this out for a second. So I decided to opt for the long pendulums like the Kirith Ungol. I got a correction on the pronunciation, so I hope I have it right now. Castle piece, which has those sort of long parallel lines with those small arches at the top. And I wanted to have something that sat out from the structure so that it would give, you know, like somebody could overlook into the interior of the castle. I figure, you know, royalty and whatnot would like to take a look at that. Of course, defenders could also take advantage of that to fire into the interior. So that gives you a sense of that. I decided for the open flat area here, of course that hole needs to get filled, that I would just go with straight squares for the tiling for the interior rather than opt for, you know, some kind of enhanced radial pattern. There are some defects in the radius. Here's one I cleaned up a little bit, and you can see there's a couple problems over there. But I plan to have, when I finish the back wall, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, I plan to have the back wall coming onto this piece, so some of those defects along the back edge will be hidden. And of course I haven't cleaned up, I haven't trimmed, you know, some of the flanges from laying in the foam to this point, so that there's some cleanup there that will also happen, of course. The interior, you can see I did in a just a square grid as well. And what I'm thinking of at this point is that I'd like to actually maybe set this back further, and so not have it perfectly symmetrical all the way around, drop it back maybe 2 more inches so that there'd be a bigger opening here at the front. And I think aesthetically that's going to look better, as when you view it from the side, my hope is to have that top piece pushed back a little bit more so that there's, you know, a more varying perspective when you look at it from this kind of an angle. I think that's going to look a little bit more interesting, and it will enhance actually the playability of the interior of the castle on this side, so that kind of works out as well. Taking a look, hope not to make you seasick. So there's a close-up of the flying buttresses that I made, and you know, of course they're not glued in at the moment. So my thought was to have the 3, as this is carved in, and of course I'm going to keep pointing it out, I'm sure you understand, but there's still some sanding and some cleaning up to do on a variety of spots on this. There's the 3rd one in the back there. So this is actually carved with 3 of these spots around it, and I wanted to emulate a bit of the smaller towers in the larger one to unify the architecture a little bit. So anyway, I went with those 3 and the 3 flying buttresses around it. But it just so happens that I have 3 of these external towers, so it works well to just be able to move them out to there. Then the walkway, the customer requested it be 4 inches wide, and that it have no top railing, you know, so a tray of troops could overhang it if needed. So I did that, and actually this is not affixed at this moment, so let's take that out. So you can see that I just put a little dressing along the top edge to hide the union of the 2 types of foam. I went with a staggered square to match the flooring of some of the other areas of the castle. And then, you know, it's been detail bricked in the interior as well, so you can see that. And of course, you know, you have to cut it to match the curvatures of the 2 surfaces. And right now, that just kind of sits in there. Whoop, keep it in frame. Anyway, that just sits in there, and that will get magnets to hold it in place. Probably several magnets, as I'd like it to be a pretty strong bond. So once I had done the arch, then it changed the aesthetics of this tower quite a bit, as without that arch, the tower just looked, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me, and it really looked much more appropriate with the walkway going towards it, sort of grounded it to the major structure. So that is, people know I'm a zombie fan. Anyway, so that is, you know, that's why maybe the buttresses don't really work there. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit here, but there's lots to talk about. It's been a while since I've done an update on this. So, thinking for this tower, once again, just to describe that, I wanted it to have a different look from these. I didn't want to model the same kinds of fluting and cuts on it. So what I wanted to do is have it be larger at the top, thinner at the bottom, have the curvature of the tower come into the interior of this area, and somebody suggested adding doors at the various heights and using the central tower as the virtual, ladder, elevator, whatnot, to connect all of these levels. I really like that idea. It simplifies some things, it ties it all together, and it was my intention to have it fill this void in the interior here as well. So that's the current plan. I think I'd rather not want to pursue the wooden structure for the crane to lift up troops, as that's going to be a bit cumbersome, dangerous for when you're actually moving models. You're very likely to break that, and it's going to be kind of complicated to construct, and I am on a bit of a deadline here. So I think, tying in that tower and using that as the connector for all of these levels is going to work out really well. The rock wall is the final section maybe to discuss at this point. And what I'd like to do, you can see here, is I've bulked it out at the bottom. Currently this is about that's 8 inches thick at the bottom. When I was assembling the wall, I ended up with some natural variation in it. Hard to explain how that happened, but it just did. But I'm going to try to capitalize on that and push out the bottom of the rock wall and have this recessed into it. Again, I would like to carve out, push this back a bit, and then and it's going to come out a little bit on the top on this side, so it'll be slightly uneven in terms of the radius of the wall and how it meets the stone backing. My thoughts on excuse me, my thoughts on this currently, well, let's look at one more thing and then we'll talk about that. Lastly, the entranceway to the main wall, I took a look at Helm's Deep, and Helm's Deep has a staggered stone working to receive the door. So that is what I've done here to model that. It actually wasn't too difficult to do and fits aesthetically pretty nicely. I had to trim these pieces here to accommodate the new door size and recut them. That wasn't terribly difficult. And the plan now then, looking at Helm's Deep as a guide for this aesthetically, is to mount the door at the outside edge here, and then it will be able to open freely. I'm a little bit concerned still about mounting the door into this, as this is a relatively fragile substrate to pin, a hinge set into, but once it's foam coated, it should be reinforced, and there may be some other ways to reinforce it. So I'm still planning on having the door functional. I think that's important for a piece like this. So that's one of those plans. So the last thing to discuss then is what I plan to do about basing this as well as the rock wall in the back. It took me a while to realize, well, first of all, the plan now is to ship it via freight, and I'm going to investigate that over the next couple days to make sure that that's going to be doable. Shipping it freight will allow me to ship it as a complete piece, all together connected, which I prefer at this point, as it's going to give me some creative flexibility in how I can base this, as well as and how I can join it to the wall. I've been concerned about having it detachable from the wall, but making that seam look good. So by having it fixed into the wall, I can actually sculpt the wall and the rock wall and the castle walls to join in a permanent way that gives me ability to finish it to a much higher degree. Once I realized that I could do that, then I realized that what I can do, my current plan, is to base this on plywood. And by basing it on plywood, cat, this is Harry. By basing it on plywood, I can then sculpt rock up to meet the bottom of the castle at these points here, and all the way around, and so it'll look like it's been built into a rock foundation. That is going to not only finish the edge and give it flexibility to match any tabletop that it gets placed on, but also it's going to provide a really good protective base to this. As it's been growing in size, it's been growing in weight, hasn't even been foam coated yet, and I'm concerned about protecting all of these prominent corners and rounded edges and the like. So that's the plan, mounted on plywood, probably using Sculptamold as a general modeling agent to build up rock along the base of the entire structure, as well as using that to then flow onto the backs of the walls and the edge pieces and seamlessly join it to the rock wall. So this week will be to finish the tower. Once I get some feedback on the buttresses, decide where they go, and carve the rock wall and begin to fit that together. Once I have the tower done, that'll take me a day or two, and the rock wall carved, that'll take me a day or two. And I've got the layout set, and I know about the shipping finally. I'm probably going to try and reserve the shipping now so that I know it can go out on time. Then I'll be able to begin to foam coat this, as well as design the Mordor elements to adorn it. The plan right now for those kinds of elements is to virtually bolt on metallic strips with spikes. You know, that'll be probably resin cast if I can do that, and it'll be much quicker to reproduce numerous pieces. So I can bolt on, you know, strips with spikes, create flanges that will come off of the towers that were added that will give it a much spikier, ornate appearance to those. And take those kinds of elements and add them to all of the prominent surfaces along the top of the walkway as well, and along the top of the walkway in the back here as well. So, and of course the main tower that's in the back here. So the thought is to create something that's going to be versatile so I can reproduce it relatively quickly and then add it to all of these different spots. There's a lot to go, and there's a lot of work to be done. But hopefully it's moving in a good direction, and hopefully the customer feels the same, and of course you, the viewers. And as always, I'll do a little lean in here. As always, feel free to leave comments and suggestions down below. I listen to every single one of them, and feedback on this kind of a project is important, mainly because it's brand new and I'm going in some areas that I've never gone before. So I always appreciate perspectives, and if you have some tips on how to do anything, you know, feel free to suggest those as well. But thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and keep your eye on the channel as we'll be back very, very soon with another video.